The fog began to roll in just after sundown. It wasn't the thick, heavy kind that blankets everything in a hurry. No, this fog was patient. It drifted low along the grass like it was searching for something, or someone, curling around fence posts and licking at the corners of the village roads. Even the streetlights looked unsure of themselves, their glow dimming as if the fog had whispered a secret they didn't like. 12-year-old Eli Benton sat alone on the back porch of his uncle's cottage, feet dangling off the edge, his shoes tapping the wooden steps in a soft, restless rhythm. The cottage was tucked on the border of the forest, a patch of untamed land that the locals didn't talk about much. Not out of fear, or so they claimed, but out of habit, like they'd simply decided one day that the woods weren't worth remembering. Eli hadn't meant to come here. He was only supposed to stay for the summer while his dad was working overseas. But from the moment he stepped off the train, something felt off. Birds didn't sing in the trees. Dogs didn't bark. The sky always looked one shade dimmer than it should have, like it had forgotten what color to be. Still, Eli liked the quiet. It gave him room to think. He watched the fog drift across the field now, smooth and slow, until it reached the tree line. Then it stopped. Not like it faded out, like it was waiting for permission. The trees stood like tall black pillars, watching the world with no eyes. Beyond them, the shadows thickened into something too dark to be night. Behind him, the screen door creaked open. "You best come inside," said Uncle Drew, his voice low and worn, like wood rubbed smooth by time. "Fog's rolling wrong tonight." Eli turned. "Is that bad?" Uncle Drew didn't answer right away. He stared at the forest for a long moment, eyes narrowed. "Used to be houses out there," he said finally. "Before the woods came in." Eli blinked. "The woods moved?" Another silence. Then, "They always do. When the house is hungry." The porch light flickered. Uncle Drew shut the door behind him, leaving Eli in the chill of the coming dark. That night, Eli couldn't sleep. The air inside the cottage felt too still, like everything was holding its breath. The old grandfather clock in the hallway ticked steadily, but each chime sounded farther away than the last, as though the house were sinking into some deeper place while the world kept spinning above it. Eli rolled over in bed, tangled in the worn quilt, and stared at the ceiling. The shadows there danced slowly, cast by the swaying branches outside the window. He listened for the familiar sound of night insects, the chirp of crickets or the distant call of an owl, but there was only silence. Then he heard it, soft at first. A low, muffled bark. He sat up. Another bark came, closer now. Then a whine. High-pitched, frantic. Familiar. "Bruno?" Eli whispered, his heart skipping. He hadn't seen his dog since the day before, when the back gate had been left open. They'd searched the nearby hills, the field, even the edge of the woods, but there had been no trace. Until now. Eli threw off the quilt and crept toward the window. The fog had thickened again, rolling like smoke across the ground. And just past the tree lean, he saw something move. A shape. 4 legs. A tail. Barking, wagging. "Bruno," he hissed, pushing the window open. The dog barked again, eager, insistent, and darted deeper into the forest, vanishing between the trunks. Without thinking, Eli grabbed his sneakers, shoved them on without tying the laces, and slipped out the front door as quietly as he could. The night swallowed him instantly. The flashlight he'd grabbed sputtered to life in his hand, casting a weak yellow beam that barely touched the trees. The fog closed around his legs like wet hands, and the air was so cold it made his teeth ache. But still, there was Bruno's bark. Always just ahead. Always one step deeper. "Wait! Bruno, wait!" He chased the sound for what felt like forever. The trees all looked the same now, tall and thin, their bark pale and flaking like old skin. Moss dangled from the branches in long strips, and the ground beneath his feet squished like it wasn't quite solid. Then he saw it. Not the dog. The house. It rose in front of him like a bruise in the air, the roof slanted, the walls leaning in as if it had taken a breath and forgotten to let it go. The windows glinted in the flashlight beam, too many windows, some tiny like portholes, others tall and narrow like watching eyes. The door creaked open before he touched it. Inside, it was dark. And warm. And waiting. The door swung inward without a sound. Eli hesitated on the threshold, one foot still resting on the forest floor. The air that spilled out was thick and warm, like breath from deep underground. It smelled of cedar and wet earth, but also of something older. Dry, brittle, like paper left to rot in a cellar. And something else. Something faintly sweet, like vanilla. Like his mother's perfume. "Bruno," he called again, barely above a whisper. No answer. Not even a bark. Only the groan of wood shifting deep inside the house, like it was stretching awake after a long nap. He stepped over the threshold. The door eased shut behind him with a slow, deliberate click. Eli turned sharply. The handle wouldn't budge. The wood was smooth beneath his fingers, but cold. Strangely cold. Almost like. "Eli," a voice whispered. He spun around, flashlight beam cutting wildly through the dark. "Who's there?" The voice didn't answer. But the flashlight flickered, and when it came back on, the room had changed. It hadn't been a room when he walked in. Just a wide, empty entrance with cracked tiles and long shadows. But now, the space had rearranged itself. There was furniture. An old couch, dusty but intact. A fireplace with a charred log inside, glowing softly. Portraits lined the walls, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Faces in black and white, faded by time. And in every single one, the same expression, not a smile, not a frown, but a wide-eyed stare. Eli took a step back. His heel hit something soft. He turned and saw a rug, thick, floral, like the one from his grandmother's living room. And beyond it, past the archway that hadn't been there moments ago, a hallway stretched forward into the dark. A low, echoing tick-tick-tick drifted from the shadows. A clock. But not just any clock. The clock. His father's old grandfather clock, broken years ago in a move, the one that had stood in their living room back in Ohio. "No way," Eli whispered. He stepped toward it. Every detail was the same. The polished wood, the chipped corner near the base, the scratch where he'd carved his initials at age 7, EB. The hands didn't move. But the tick never stopped. Behind him, the portraits began to whisper. Not words. Just breath. Soft, almost soothing. As though the walls were exhaling memory. "Welcome back," a woman's voice said gently. He froze. That voice. "Mom?" Eli didn't move. Didn't breathe. That voice had come from behind him, calm, warm, painfully familiar. But it couldn't be. "Mom," he said again, barely audible. Slowly, he turned. No one was there. Only the hallway, stretching longer than before. The shadows shifted like water, parting slightly to reveal a small table beneath one of the wall sconces. On the table stood a single picture frame. Not dusty like the others. Not aged or yellowed. New. His hand trembled as he picked it up. It was a photo of his mother, smiling in her favorite blue sweater, the one with the stitched daisies around the collar. She looked alive in it, really alive, like she might speak at any moment. Her eyes, green and gentle, seemed to focus past him, into the hall behind. He flipped it over. There was something scrawled on the back in ink that was still wet. "Come find me. Mom." Eli staggered back, heart hammering. That handwriting. He recognized it. She used to write notes in his lunchbox. Good luck on your spelling test. Love you, sweetheart. But she was gone. She had died 2 years ago. He remembered the hospital. The pale sheets. The hollow way her chest stopped rising. She didn't write anymore. Yet here it was. Fresh, unmistakable. No, he whispered to himself. This is just a dream. The hallway pulsed gently. The shadows receded further. Tick tick tick. The clock had started again. Eli looked down. The hands moved now, slow and smooth, but backwards, counting down instead of up. Each click felt heavier than the last. Then he heard it again, Eli. This time, it wasn't a whisper. It was a lullaby. Soft, melodic, coming from down the hallway. His mother's song. He remembered the words, though she used to hum more than sing them. Close your eyes and count to 10. Shadows pass and come again. If the night should call your name, answer not, or you'll remain. His legs moved before his thoughts could catch them. Step by step, he followed the tune. The hallway shifted as he walked, growing narrower, the ceiling lower. The wallpaper changed patterns, first floral, then stars, then plain white, until he reached a small wooden door at the end. A child's door. His size. The lullaby stopped. The door opened on its own. Inside was a bedroom. His bedroom. But not the one from the cottage. The one from home. Eli stood frozen in the doorway. The bedroom on the other side wasn't just similar to his old one, it was identical. Every detail. From the crooked poster of his favorite comic hero, Silver Warden, to the plush toy rabbit slumped in the corner with its missing ear. Even the scratch on the windowsill, where he'd once dropped a glass of juice and tried to wipe it up before his mom noticed, was there. It was his childhood room. From 3 years ago. But how? He stepped inside slowly, feeling like he'd sunk into warm water. The temperature changed immediately, no longer cold and damp like the house, but soft and still. The air smelled of cinnamon and laundry detergent, exactly like it used to when his mom would do laundry on Sundays. He turned in a slow circle. His homework desk stood in the corner, with his old spelling book still open. He peeked at the page. Lesson 8, Disappear. Forgotten. Whisper. A chill ran through him. He hadn't seen this room since they'd moved out. His mother's illness had gotten worse, and they'd downsized to a smaller place in the city. But none of those memories were here. Only the comfort of a time when things had still been okay. And then he saw it, the night light. Shaped like a small smiling moon, tucked into the wall beside his bed. He used to stare at it when the dark felt too big. He hadn't seen it since the night she went into the hospital. The moment he reached out to touch it. A soft voice spoke from behind him. You always used to leave it on too long, the voice said. He turned sharply. She was there. Standing in the doorway. Wearing the blue sweater with the daisies. Her hair tied back like she used to when she was cooking. Her hands folded gently in front of her. Smiling. Mom. He didn't run to her. He wanted to. Every cell in his body screamed for him to. But something was off. Not wrong, just slightly misplaced, like a mirror that doesn't quite reflect you right. Hi, sweetheart, she said, her voice soft as ever. Eli's breath caught in his throat. You're not real. I am, she said. I've been waiting. This house, it remembers. It keeps what matters. She reached out a hand. Her fingers were pale, her skin smooth. Too smooth. But you, he said, voice cracking. You died. Her eyes dimmed slightly. Only outside. Not here. Eli took a step back. This isn't real. This is wrong. Her smile didn't falter. But her head tilted. The house watches, Eli. It only shows you what you ask for. The nightlight flickered. Then all the objects in the room started breathing. At first, it was subtle. The bed covers rose and fell ever so slightly, like lungs drawing those shallow breaths. The curtains shivered even though the windows were closed. The desk creaked in slow, steady rhythm, as if inhaling through the wood grain. Eli backed away from the nightlight, his hands trembling. "What's happening?" he asked. The woman in the doorway, his mother, or the thing wearing her shape, lowered her hand. "The house listens," she said softly. "And it remembers. Every little thing you left behind. Every fear. Every wish." She stepped forward. Eli stumbled back until he hit the bookshelf, nearly knocking over a row of his old paperbacks. The floor under his feet pulsed once, like a heartbeat. "This isn't my room," he whispered. "It's exactly your room," she said. "You gave it shape. The house builds from memory. And you remember this place very well." "No. No, I don't want this. I didn't ask for it." "You missed it," she interrupted gently, but her voice carried more weight now. "You longed for it. You dreamed of it. The warm nights. The safety. Me. That was the invitation." Her face was still kind, but the expression behind it was sharper. "Hungrier." "Stop," Eli said, gripping the edge of the desk. "You're not her." The floorboards beneath him sighed. Then everything exhaled. The bed let out a low groan, the mattress rising like something was inside it. The rug beneath his shoes rippled. The closet door opened once. Slowly, the nightlight's soft smile twisted upward, becoming just slightly too wide. The woman's head tilted again, now unnaturally far. "I can be her," she said, her voice layered now, like a whisper overlapping another whisper, slightly out of sync. "I know her better than anyone. I know how she tucked you in, the way she said your name when you had nightmares. I remember the songs." She began to hum again. The lullaby. But now it sounded wrong. Not just eerie, incorrect. Notes stretched too long. Words bleeding into one another. It was like hearing your mother's voice on a broken radio. Eli grabbed a book from a shelf and hurled it at her. It passed through her. And still she smiled. "Where are you going, sweetheart?" she asked, stepping closer. "There's no outside." "Not anymore." Eli bolted for the door. As his hand touched the knob, the room behind him inhaled. Eli threw the door open and leapt through without looking back. But instead of a hallway, or the woods, or even darkness, he landed in a room bathed in pale green light. The walls stretched high, far too tall for any ordinary house. Above him, the ceiling drifted out of sight, lost in a haze that shimmered like water under moonlight. He scrambled to his feet. The door behind him had vanished. No handle. No frame. Just smooth wall. Breathing hard, he turned in a slow circle. The room had no windows, but a soft, sourceless light poured down from above. The floor was smooth marble, but when he looked closely, he saw letters carved into every tile, dozens, hundreds of them. Names. Some were crossed out. He took a few tentative steps forward. His sneaker scuffed over the engraved surface, and something sharp scratched his ankle. A small, rusted nail stuck out of the floor. No, not a nail. A pin, the kind you might use to tack something into place. Like a specimen. A chill ran up his spine. In the center of the room stood a single object, a child's desk. Tiny. Wooden. with a single red chair. It looked exactly like the one from his first grade classroom. And seated behind it was himself. But younger. Maybe 7 or 8. His arms folded on the desktop. His chin resting on it. His eyes wide and staring straight ahead. Frozen. What? Eli stepped closer. What is this? The boy didn't move. Didn't blink. As Eli leaned down, he realized the child wasn't breathing. He wasn't dead. He was paused. And in his tiny hands, clutched tight between his fingers, was a Polaroid photograph. Eli reached forward, hand trembling, and gently slid it from the child's grasp. The image sent a wave of ice down his spine. It was a photo of him, older, right now, standing in this room, holding the photograph. His hands began to shake. He turned it over. On the back, in the same wet ink. You never left. Behind him, footsteps echoed across the tiles. Slow. Barefoot. Deliberate. He didn't turn around. Instead, he walked faster. Then ran. He sprinted past the frozen version of himself, past the desk, dodging the sharp glints of more pins and tacks as they jutted up from the floor. The air grew warmer with every step, but the names on the floor began to change. They were no longer random. E. Benton. Eli J. Benton. Eli J. Benton, age 7. Eli J. Benton, age 12. He stopped dead. There, just ahead of him, was a tile with tomorrow's date. Next to it, carved deep and perfect. Eli J. Benton, claim. He staggered backward, then turned and slammed into something tall and cold. He looked up. A tall figure stood over him, featureless except for a long slit of a mouth, curled into a quiet smile. Its head slowly tilted left. "You've been here longer than you think," it said, in his mother's voice. Eli fell backwards, scrambling away from the towering figure, his palms scraping across the cold stone floor. The tall entity made no move to follow. It simply watched, that slit-mouthed smile stretching slightly wider now. As if pleased. "Who? What are you?" Eli gasped. The figure cocked its head, not left or right but forward, an unnatural, jerky movement that cracked softly as it shifted. "I am the archivist," it replied, its voice smooth and echoing, still wearing the soothing tones of Eli's mother. "I keep the names. I keep the stories. I preserve what's forgotten." Its arms unfurled from beneath its long, robe-like skin. Not sleeves, skin. They were long and translucent, filled with things that twitched faintly behind the membrane. A child's drawing. A photograph. A tiny lock of brown hair. Each one floated like insects caught in amber. "You're not real," Eli whispered. The archivist stepped forward, and the floor rippled beneath its feet. Its head turned slowly, unnaturally, as it glanced toward the desk with the paused version of Eli. "Reality is a thin fabric here," it said. "You brought yourself to the scene." "What does that mean?" "I just followed my dog." The archivist's mouth pulled open wider. Not in a laugh. Not in hunger.